Okay, now it seems like we have our guest with us in this Zoom meeting, and as it said in the invitation, we're going to do this in English. My name is Fredrik Saweståhl. I'm a member of Parliament for Moderaterna in Stockholms län, and I serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. So I do work a lot with the Middle East and issues around our support for Israel. And our guest today is no other than the Deputy Ambassador from Israel, Madam Arezoo Hersel-Rohila, who will talk to us about the situation on the ground in Israel right now and what's happening with the ceasefire agreement with surrounding the war in Gaza and of course what's going on with the hostages and how the official response from Israel is at this moment. I will give the floor to you. I'm just going to ask you before we start, your address. How do you want to handle? Do you want to have questions at the end? Maybe people can write questions in the chat, and we will and I will ask them to you. Is that okay?
Yes. First of all, good evening, everyone. Although I cannot see all of you, I'm very happy to be here tonight and speak with you. Thank you for the Friendship Association for organizing this important meeting. And I think it's good that we can have also members who are not based in Stockholm. So the technology is helping us here. Yes, I think that I will speak about maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then we can open the floor for questions.
Perfect. And I would suggest that I think the easiest way of asking a question is actually writing the question in the chat function, and I will keep a look on that. I will keep my eye on that. So the floor is yours. Please tell us about the situation.
Thank you. So as you all know, on 7th of October 2023, there have been 250 men, women, children, elderly, who were abducted from Israel by the terrorist organization Hamas. And more than 1,200 people, Israelis, were murdered during the atrocities. These atrocities were committed not only by the Hamas, but also by the terrorist organization, the Islamic Jihad, and other factions. Since the beginning of the war, we have lost more than 800 soldiers in the battlefield. As you know, before the current new agreement that was signed between Israel and Hamas, in November 2024, 157 hostages were returned to Israel. Some of them were returned by heroic operations by the IDF, and unfortunately, some of them came back not alive. It has been a very bumpy road for us in Israel, an emotional roller coaster, and a very huge hope for us to be able to return all our brothers and his sisters back home. About the war itself and what does exactly the targets that Israel would like to achieve. I suppose that you're familiar with them, but it's important for me to repeat them. So first and foremost, of course, to bring back all our hostages. The second goal, which is extremely important, is to dismantle Hamas. When we speak about dismantling Hamas, we would like to see Hamas not ruling Gaza, because a part of the fact that Hamas would like to annihilate Israel, it is also killing its own civilians when it uses them as human shields and uses them as a blackmailing tool in order to achieve its murderous goals. We would like to dismantle Hamas as a terror organization and as the ruler of Gaza. We need to demilitarize Gaza in the long term in order to be able to settle this long and bloody war that has been going on. I can tell you about the new deal that was signed. It was signed in 17th of January. And it has actually two parts. The first part started on the 19th of January. Why did it take 48 hours? Because Israel, as a democratic country, owes its people to be able to challenge the decision of the government. As I will elaborate a bit more later, in the framework of this deal, Israel agreed to release a lot of Palestinian terrorists that were held in Israel. Many of them after long trials in which it was determined that they have been involved in murderous terror attacks against Israelis and caused the death of many Israelis. So those 48 hours were meant for example, members of those who were the civilians that were murdered to challenge the decision of the government. However, rest assured that the Supreme Court of Israel didn't think even for 1 minute to approve these appeals, if there were any, but there weren't any, as far as I know. So the agreement came into effect on the 19th of January, and it is supposed to be 42 days long. What Israel gets? We are supposed to get back 33 Israeli hostages, and we are supposed to give back and release to the Palestinians 737 terrorists who are convicted terrorists in Israel, 1,167 detainees since the 8th of October, which means that we are not talking about those prisoners that participated in the massacre of 7th of October. The second phase will start only if everything goes well on the 16th of February. But as I said, in order for it to start, we need to make sure that the agreement is kept by the Hamas. So now we are in the first phase. We have, of course, during this 42 days, seized the battle in Gaza. And when we're talking about who are those 33 people who are going to be released, we are speaking about women, children, elderlies above 50 years old, women soldiers, and civilians who are either sick or injured. In addition to those, we have demanded to release also hostages that have been kept in Gaza by Hamas before 7th of October. And we have several of those. So in this 33 patch of hostages that are going to be released, we have also Abera Mengistu, and we have Hisham Assayed, who are held in Gaza since 2014 or 15. We don't know who from these 33 people is dead and who is alive. We haven't gotten any kind of list from Hamas, and we are supposed to get it when I'm talking to you right now, but we haven't. And even when we get back the list, we will know how many people from the list are dead, how many are alive, but they won't tell us the names of those who are part of the dead and part of the people who are still alive. You can imagine that it is extremely nerve-wracking. It's a psychological war. And imagine all those families that are waiting for their loved ones to come back, but they have no idea if they are dead or alive. What is the order of the people that are going to be released? First, Israel demanded that the civilian women that are alive will be released. Then the civilian women soldiers. Then the rest of those who are still alive. And only from the 6th week of the ceasefire, we will receive back the bodies of those who perished, unfortunately. It's important to say that when we speak about those who were abducted before 7th of October, one of them was the soldier Ron Shaul, and his body was kept in Gaza since 2014. And right before the ceasefire started, the IDF has been successful in retrieving his body outside of the deal. And it is a milestone. It is a milestone because we can finally bring him to rest in peace, bring him back to his family. And that has been our debt to the family of Oron Shaul, and now he's back. I'm sure that many of you have followed the release of the hostages that started last week. As you saw, 3 women civilians were released last Sunday. Apart from it being very emotional for all of us, it was a very hard scene to see how Hamas has staged the release. It was even grotesque because we saw these 3 women going from the cars of the Hamas to the cars of the Red Cross, while there are many people around them that are shouting at them and trying supposedly to hurt them. We saw their horrified faces when they were transferred from one vehicle to the other, and the cynical way that Hamas treated them when they were handed these certificates of release from Hamas, and they were given these goodie bags, literally goodie bags, in which you could find inside a map of Gaza and their pictures from the time of the captivity. Again, these are they seem like little details, but they manifest to us who we are dealing with, what kind of monsters we're dealing with. Yesterday was another phase of the release. 4 women soldiers, young soldiers, were given back to us. And that was a huge relief, of course. This time, speaking of grotesque manifestations, this time Hamas wanted to show how powerful they are and how they rule Gaza very well. So they filmed the soldiers in the vehicles of Hamas before getting to the point of the release. And they were speaking Arabic and thanking Hamas for the way they treated them during the time that they were in captivity. And they were forced to come up a stage which was probably meant to humiliate them. But the contrary happened. These very young and brave soldiers, they stood very proud. They waved even to this hostile crowd that was around them, and they smiled. And I have to say that as an Israeli citizen, I was totally stunned by this. Now they're safe back. They're of course they're kept in hospital with the other hostages that were released last week, because as opposed to us seeing them waving and smiling and apparently looking good, we know that the horrors of captivity are haunting them, and it will take a long time until they can join the society as as people who can live their lives naturally. There was one more detail when they were released. They were dressed in supposedly IDF uniforms. And this is something that was noted also by the Swedish media, that, oh, look at the soldiers, they look content and they are coming back with the outfit that they were captured in. And that is not true. These soldiers were in their dormitories in the base. They were kidnapped in their pajamas. And many of you probably remember the horrific films in which, for example, one of them was seen while Hamas terrorist drags her by her hair in her pajamas, and she was all bloody. So they're trying to fool the world. They try to depict themselves as very humanistic organization, which is of course not true. Now, in this very, very bumpy road, there are problems. What are the problems? Yesterday, there were supposed to be released 3 soldiers and 1 woman civilian. She wasn't released. When Hamas gave the names of those who were going to be released just a few hours before, she was not there. And this is a breach of the agreement. Now, I imagine that it's a very, very hard decision for my government. What to do with this? Are we going to go ahead with the deal? Are we going to stop it? What about that extra soldier that is going to come back? Are we going to leave her there and insist that that person would be part of the list? So it has been a very hard decision, and the government of Israel decided that we will go ahead with the agreement, and the 4 soldiers were released. However, since we are dealing here with a terrorist organization, we are not going to give up any of our hostages, definitely not those who are alive. So Israel decided not to open the Netzarim corridor, which was supposed to be opened right after the release yesterday, and to let the civilian population of Gaza to go back to the north to the places of their homes. Now, this has been depicted also in the international media as something cruel that is Israel doing. However, as I said, we don't have any problem opening the corridor. But in order to do that, we need to get the civilian back. And we need to get her back before the next stage of the agreement. And as long as Hamas does not comply with that, we won't comply with the agreement as well. So I have to say that I watched today the news, and I saw these poor people of Gaza that have been away from their homes and have been anticipating so much to go back to their places, just waiting at the border and waiting for the corridor to open. So this is Hamas. This is the way Hamas treats its own people. And as I said, the solution is very, very clear. Give us back the civilian, we will open the corridor. Let's hope that this will happen, because next Saturday, we are going to have 3 more civilians coming back. And this will go on, as I said, until the last stage is done. And then we can move on to the second phase of the deal. I was talking about the people of Gaza. Israel has responsibilities according also to the international law. And according to the agreement, Israel is supposed to make it easier for the humanitarian assistance to go inside Gaza. So just to give you a rough number, since the beginning of the ceasefire, there have been more than 4,000 of lorries with humanitarian aid going into Gaza. And since the beginning of the war, there have been more than 65,000 lorries going in, with more than 1.3 million tons of different kinds of humanitarian assistance. In parallel to the joy that we felt up until now with the release of the hostages, I can tell that yesterday, in exchange of the 4 soldiers that were released, we have released 200 Palestinian terrorists. And if you're interested, you can see that on our Twitter or other social media, because there you can see the stories of each and every person who was released. These people have brutally murdered Israelis, and there are so many stories. And some of them were sent back to the West Bank, some of them to East Jerusalem, some of them to Gaza, and some of them to other countries. These people have blood on their hands, and they are going, we don't have any illusions. We think that many of them are going to go back to terrorist activities. And this is extremely, extremely worrying. This is the deal. So we will go ahead with it, and let's hope that the first phase is done. After that, we will still have 64 hostages that need to come home. So it's a long and bumpy road. I can elaborate a bit also about the rest of the region, which is also very, very important for you as friends of Israel to know. First of all, about the axis of evil and Iran that is heading it. We can see that, as opposed to the hopes of Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, and other terrorist organizations, this axis of resistance, as they call themselves, is weakening day by day. In Lebanon, the Hezbollah has been weakened, and Nasrallah is gone. In the Gaza Strip, although we see these manifestations of power by Hamas, most of the Hamas has been dismantled, and their capabilities have been narrowed very much. That's the other thing. In Syria, as you know, the Assad regime has fallen, and there is a new regime. Iran itself, it tried to attack us twice and succeeded, actually, in many ways. But when they don't have their proxies powerful around Israel, then this is also a defeat for Iran. We have also the Houthis. The Houthis, who have no border with Israel, that are 2,000 kilometers away, have been firing rockets, hundreds of rockets, towards Israel. And as a result, even Israelis were injured and died. And they're very much linked to Iran, of course. And we have been asking our friends in Europe, including Sweden, to work for recognizing the Houthis as a terrorist organization, because this is exactly what they are. Now they have all kinds of manipulations. They said that if there's a ceasefire in Gaza, they will stop. But there is a ceasefire, and then they said, until there is not a permanent ceasefire, we are not going to stop. So these are all ways of continuing to hurt Israel without any provocation, as I said. Today, the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon was supposed to go to its next phase. And the IDF was supposed to completely leave southern Lebanon and allow the civilians of southern Lebanon to go back to their homes. However, unfortunately, the government of Lebanon has not been able to fill its obligations according to this agreement. So according to the agreement, they have been given 60 days to make sure that Hezbollah has withdrawn to the north, and that the Lebanese army is going to take its place. However, it has not been done at all. So Israel is very determined not to leave southern Lebanon until this is settled, because we cannot afford to have more than 60,000 Israelis who are refugees in their own country and cannot live in their own homes because of the fact that they are threatened by Hezbollah. So I have seen today also these pictures from the border between Israel and Lebanon, and seen all these people who just want to go back home and they cannot. And instead of blaming their own government, they are blaming Israel. But we cannot compromise. There are things that we cannot compromise about. And right now we have we are backed by the US, France, and other countries. And we really hope that this situation will change. Last but not least, Syria. Unfortunately, I don't have any optimistic view to share with you about that, because although we have seen these smile attacks by the new regime, they're extreme Islamists. They do not want peace with Israel. Changing their clothes and putting outfits and looking Western is not enough, because there are many proofs of their atrocities in the past. And just to give you an example, their Minister of Justice has been executing women. It's just a small example. But unfortunately, we don't think that this new regime could be a partner for peace and stabilize the Middle East region. With that note, I have concluded my part, and I will be really happy to hear your questions.
Thank you so much, Arezoo. Thank you for the presentation and your notes on this serious situation. And of course, I think we all agree that it is a bumpy road, but we all hope and pray that it will be successful in such a way that the hostages are released and will be brought back to their families and their homes. I see there's one question written down, and it's I'm gonna ask it to you. It's about the Palestinian Authority and the school materials that have terror incitement text and information, who sort of creates new generations of jihadists or terrorists. And the question would be, how could donor countries like Sweden continue to give Palestinian Authority support when at the same time they act like this and have that kind of material? And the second part of the question is, why does Israel have to give humanitarian aid to an enemy that has such an agenda that they actually do? This goes all the way back to the Oslo Accords, apparently, where, I mean, the support you're supposed to give them versus what they're supposed to do. You're doing your part, they're not doing their part. Would you like to elaborate a little on that?
Yes, thank you for the question. First of all, about the humanitarian assistance to Gaza. As I said, this is part of our humanitarian obligations not to feed the people of Gaza, not to give them the humanitarian assistance, but since we are controlling the border passes, it is our obligation to let the assistance to go in. And we have been doing so very reluctantly, and I just gave you the numbers in the beginning. The problem is when that humanitarian aid goes to the other side, because Hamas is taking that, most of it. It's been looted. We have seen many pictures and many observations about that. As you probably know, UNRWA has been, for a very long time, the sole entity that was in charge of distributing this aid, but they have been too weak in front of Hamas. And as we have proved many times, they're infiltrated by Hamas members that pretend to be civilians and be part of UNRWA. Having said that, as you know, Sweden has decided to stop working with UNRWA. And this is a very significant decision that Israel is very thankful for, because our request from Sweden was not to stop the aid to the Palestinians. All we have requested is that the aid will be given to organizations that have no connection with Hamas, that we can actually know that this aid goes to the people of Gaza. And as you know, Sweden has decided to work with other organizations, humanitarian organizations, and doubled its assistance to Gaza. So we very much welcome this, and we hope that all the assistance will get to those who need it. Talking about the West Bank, as you know, UNRWA works not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. And UNRWA actually uses the same teaching material as the Palestinian Authority. They don't have their own system of developing teaching material. And when they take the teaching material of the Palestinian Authority, we get material that do not recognize Israel, that, as was correctly said in the question, they encourage the young generation of the Palestinians to hate Israel, not even recognize that there is such an entity, such a state as Israel. And they are unfortunately taught that we are only occupiers and that they need to go back to the places of their ancestors. This is a long debate, and in order to fix it, we need partners on the other side. We need Palestinian partners. Unfortunately, since 7th of October, Mahmoud Abbas has not condemned the atrocities. The ambassador or representative of the Palestinian Authority here in Sweden was very reluctant not to say that 7th of October was a massacre. So this can, just two examples that can show you that unfortunately we are very, very far from having real partners to go ahead with. And I have to say that the Israeli people are very much disillusioned, especially after 7th of October. And personally, for me, it is sad to see that because we know that in the end of the day, we need to live side by side. There is no other solution. The only question is how we get there. And it's going to be a long way. It's going to be a long road. And yeah, that's the way it is right now.
That is the million-dollar question. How will it turn out in the end? I can actually attest to what you're saying, since we have met with several UN organizations and other humanitarian aid organizations recently, and they are telling us that aid is going into Gaza more now than before, and they're not going through UNRWA. They are at other organizations like World Food Program or OCHA or etc. So that is, of course, a step forward, and we are very pleased as well that we've made this decision and steers the humanitarian aid through other sources. There are a few more questions. I will go through them, and hopefully we can have some short and good answers to them. Firstly, Turkey. Do Israel consider Turkey as a threat? And is there a worry that Turkey might do something against Israel by acting through Syria?
Okay, so Turkey is becoming more and more a significant actor in the Middle East. As we know, Erdogan is not a friend of Israel and has stopped many significant ties that we had with them, especially the commercial ties. It is no secret that they are active in Syria and trying to influence the new Syrian regime. It is evolving all the time. So we are following that closely. And we will see how things develop. I don't think that there is right now any thought about Turkey attacking Israel. I think that we are far from that. But there is no question that Turkey is one of the main actors now in the Middle East.
Okay, thank you. The third question is about media, with Swedish radio as an example, and how they report on the conflict and the issues going on. They sound like a Hamas report. Do you want to comment on how you view the media situation?
Are we referring to the Swedish media or the media overall?
I think we're referring to Swedish media.
Yeah. The Swedish media many times quotes the international media, and many times the sources that they use are sources that are not so friendly towards Israel. We also know that media wants to sell. I mean, media, they want to attract your attention with the worst situations, the humanitarian situations, and show who is the bad guy and who is the good guy, to make a very accurate distinction between the two. And I have to say, the media battle is a huge battle. I know that we have a lot of friends that are watching that media, and many times they get upset and message me, for example, and say, "Oh, did you see what SVT they showed? And it's not right, etc., etc." I think that this is where we need our friends. You, the Swedish people who follow the media, you are the ones who can broaden the knowledge about what's really going on in the conflict in Israel. If you're active on social media, that's even better, because nowadays, as you know, it's not only TV, the paper that you buy in the supermarket, and the radios. Much is going on in the social media, and I really recommend you to be active in that and help spread the word.
Well, thank you. I think I can safely say that at least the 55 or so people at this webinar are going to be of assistance when it comes to spreading a better and correct picture of the situation. Do you think, I mean, Hamas is, of course, a terrorist organization, and their end goal is to eradicate Israel, which is tragic. Even given that, is there what do you think about the long-term solution when it comes to the ceasefire and some form of peace agreement towards Gaza? Is it even possible? And what role, if any, do the Palestinian Authority based in Ramallah play in the situation right now?
Yes. One thing is for sure, and this is agreed by the international community, that Hamas cannot be part of the solution for the day after the war. And we have to find someone else. Who would it be? I wish I could say that the Palestinian Authority is the right partner, but as I elaborated before, they're not ripe for that, and they're not willing to work with us. So what would be the solution? Another faction, another entity? We don't have that right now. I predict that at least in the medium term, Israel will have to be responsible on the security matters in order to make sure that another 7th of October will not occur. That's one thing. We need also the help of the international community to find a substitute for Hamas. I'm sure that my government is brainstorming about that. But right now, we are so much focused on this phase, on getting back our people, of having a ceasefire, that we need to finish this first. Mm-hmm. What comes afterwards is something that is very much related to the ceasefire that we have right now. Would it last or not?
Well, we all hope it lasts, because that would be better also for all the people concerned. One more question from the audience, but I've got a question of my own as well, also regarding the long-term solutions. What kind of role do you think that the other Arab countries could play to stabilize the situation? I mean, with the Abraham Accords and with the fact that Egypt and Israel has been at peace with each other for, is it over 40 years? And so what could Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the other Arab countries do to help stabilize the situation and perhaps play a role in rebuilding Gaza without Hamas?
Yes, definitely. When I speak about the international community, of course, I also mean the moderate Arab countries. I think that most of them are having the same position as we do, that Hamas is not part of the solution, but only part of the problem. And I definitely think that they will have a role in rebuilding Gaza and stabilizing Gaza. It's also a matter of what will happen between Israel and, for example, Saudi Arabia. We don't know yet. We just know that Israel is, of course, willing to have normalization with that country and other countries in the Middle East. And I definitely think that they can be part of the equation.
Okay, well, that's hopeful, I guess. And we have one more question, which is written in Swedish. I will quickly translate it. as concerning evidence, because we all know that humanitarian aid, as you mentioned as well, has been grabbed by Hamas, grabbed by the terrorist organizations instead of reaching the people the way it should. But often humanitarian organizations say, well, we don't really know who's a terrorist and who's not, as we cannot be sure what we're doing or who we're dealing with. So this is also in the debate and in the international community a problem. Do Israel have more evidence, concrete evidence that you could show and use to make sure that to give a correct picture and to both to the international community, but also to the humanitarian aid organizations, so that they might act in a better way?
I want to make sure that I understood the question right. Do you mean if we have evidence about infiltration of terrorist organizations?
That you could present more than you already have.
Yeah. Yes, we do have evidence. And we have been sharing our evidence with relevant governments. We don't publicize it in the media, for example, but those friends of Israel who need to know about it have gotten the material and have examined the material. You have to take into account that organizations that are related, for example, to the UN, UNRWA, etc., it's very hard for them to admit that they have been infiltrated. I think it's even natural that it's hard for them to admit, because they are there in order to help people, right? They are relief organizations. However, it doesn't mean that it should continue the way it does. I really hope that more countries will take the example of Sweden. Let's start with the European Union. I hope that more countries in the European Union will see that it can be done. And Fredrik, as you said yourself, it does work. It does work to get the assistance to people not involving, for example, UNRWA. And if it works for Sweden, it can work for other countries as well. We know that Sweden is the 4th largest donor to Gaza. So I don't see any problem for others to do that.
Well, that's a very good point, and I can assure you and everyone else listening in that we are in talks with other countries on that issue as well, of course. And that, I think, was all the questions that have been written in the chat, and I think we are about ready to conclude. Do you want to say a few final words?
Yes. Thank you, first of all, for this opportunity. I have to say that you, our friends, are very important for us. And we would like to be more in touch with you. It's not easy to be in touch with every single person, and that's why I offered our social media. But it's important for us to let you know that we are here for any question, for any collaboration, for any thoughts that you might have. I would like to thank you, Fredrik, Ulf, and many more friends that are involved in the Friendship Association. And I hope to be able to see you in person as soon as possible.
Well, thank you. And with that, I think we are about to conclude. So thank you so much, Madam Deputy Ambassador, for it's always nice to have those kind of titles. Everything sounds better in English as well, you know. It's not the laid-back Swedish way of doing things. But thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to talk to us about the situation on the ground right now and what you're foreseeing for the immediate future when it comes to the hostages and the situation in Gaza. And thank you to all of the people who has been watching and listening in on this webinar. It's been recorded, so I'm going to speculate that it might be shared on the Friendship Association's YouTube channel later on. So even more people can hear the messages that we just listened to. So once again, thank you, Madam Ambassador, Deputy Ambassador, and thank all of you for joining us today or tonight. And have a good Sunday evening, everyone, and take care. Over and out.
Thank you. Thank you. Hej då.
Hej då.